Hello and welcome back to Englishman in Morocco. Now, as said in last video, I have a few issues with my particularly beautiful Ferrari come Suzuki Maruti. And one of them is the carburetor. Now, it's quite a common problem here because, as we all know, a lot of these old cars have been run on nothing but ethanol fuel, E10 as it's known in a lot of countries. Now, ethanol, I'm not going to go into great details about ethanol, but one of the things it does, it attracts a lot of moisture, a lot of water. And in older classic cars, most people tend to have metal fuel tanks, and that causes condensation to build up on the inside of the fuel tank. Consequently, we end up with lots of rust that ends up in the fuel filter, the fuel pump, and eventually gets into the carburetor. Even though it may be small particles, nevertheless, it tends to get into the carburetor. The other thing with E10, it tends to create lots of varnish, and varnish again is another problem that will build up in the carburetor and cause running issues. Now, this car has done only 130,000 miles, and I wonder when the last time the carburetor was actually cleaned, and I also wonder if it ever had a good run on non-ethanol or very low ethanol fuel, or super unleaded as we tend to call it. From now on, that's what I'm going to actually be doing. I'm going to run this car on super unleaded. Yes, I know it's a bit more expensive, but again, I'm not really doing a lot of miles in this car. So with the car sitting around, rather than the fuel tank and the carburetor having lots of issues, I think probably that's the safest bet to go. The other thing is, with ethanol, I do believe that it can attack certain aluminiums, and I know back in the olden days there used to be a BMW that had major bore wear issues due to ethanol fuels, and I think really just ethanol for older cars, it just doesn't go. So what I'm going to do today, I'm going to take the carburetor, just the top part of the carburetor off, and I'm going to have a little look, give it a little tidy, a little bit of a clean, and see if that makes any difference to the running issue. Okay, as you can see, I've already removed the air housing. It's just a couple of 10 mils, one there and one sits on the top. So now that's gone, I'm going to just disconnect these two cables, and I'm just going to remove just the top part. That should give me adequate access to be able to clean it as I need. So yeah, there's one little screw hidden down there, which is very important to remember, and the rest is just in around the top. Okay, so we need to remove these two cables here. So we loosen that one off. It's a 10 mil. So that one comes off. It's got a little lug in there. So lift the cable forward, slide it out. That's the first one. I think that may be the only one that I need to remove for now. And then we're just going to remove I'm going to remove these ones from inside here. Careful not to drop them, which is very easy to do when you've got rickety old fingers like I've got. That's one. Second one. And now really it's just a matter of undoing these. First one. Second one. So we're going to go back to the conventional old type of Phillips head. Put some pressure on, and we heard it click there. So that's that one done. They don't feel like they've ever been taken off before, so that's always a good sign really, in certain ways, that it's not been tampered with. There we go. And then there's that one. Lovely. Okay, now to remove the fuel line. And then we can see the last one tucked up there. Now, in theory, it should just gently lift off. Oh, breather pipe there. Fantastic. Lovely. Well, actually, to be very honest with you, it seems quite clean in there. It doesn't seem too bad in there at all. If I can get it to focus for you. That's not as bad as I was expecting it to be. Yeah, that's not too bad at all. Okay, so I've taken the fuel out now and we can just see the jets in the bottom there. Very clean in there, I must say, I'm really surprised. So I'm going to take out those jets and give everything a bit of a clean. Okay, so when removing these jets, they are brass. Be very careful, make sure that you get the right screwdriver. Put quite a bit of pressure on there so you don't damage the top part, otherwise you're going to have all sorts of problems. That one came out relatively nicely. Okay, now that is actually connected to the main jet, the accelerator pump. So yeah, it's pretty clean, but I'm still nevertheless going to give it a bit of a squirt with some carb cleaner. Take that out first, and then we're going to gently remove this, very gently. Here we go. So again, take your time, don't damage anything. I'm going to give that a clean. See it squirt out these little holes there, that's lovely. Now the jet that we removed, what we're going to do is put our spray can, and by the way, it's quite hard to find carburetor cleaner here in Morocco. You've got to go to a very specialised place, especially in the towns. And we're going to clean that out, and if you can see, that's actually coming out the accelerator pump jet. Lovely. Fantastic. Again, I'm just going to give it another quick dose. Lovely. Perfect. Clean off the carbon build-up. Make it nice. Perfect. And then gently replace it. Make sure this is all nice and clean. And push it home. You don't have to be rough with it, just push it in gently like that. And then we will do exactly the same thing with the jet. Get straw in the end, and it should all lovely shoot out the back side. Now again, for my old fingers, I struggle to get that back in, but there we are, she's there. Make sure it's not cross-threaded. Again, with brass it's so easy to do because it's very soft. Don't over tighten it, just make sure it's a snug fit. In fact, I prefer the other screwdriver. That one's a teeny bit small. Lovely. And then exactly the same, there's a jet down here. I tend to like to use one of these mole grips. Gives me a little bit more leverage. There we are. So that's that one. Yeah, ethanol, unfortunately, is not the best fuel for old cars. So if your budget will allow it, definitely go to super unleaded. So very much similar to the other jet. They might even be identical. So again, we're just going to give that a quick clean. Lovely. Put that aside. There we go. Lovely. So again, the same sort of principle. If you can see all these various different holes and jets, these are all part of the accelerating system. So again, they need to be thoroughly cleaned. Very fine ones there. Swap the other side just to make sure you're not pressing any bits and pieces through. Lovely. Okay, so that's that nice and clean. And then exactly the same thing, we're going to put it back into the jet where the jet came from. Do bear in mind that when starting the car up again, you may have a few issues because carb cleaner might make it a little bit harder. It's empty on fuel. I'm going to fill up the fuel bowl anyway. Lovely. Okay, so we're going to pop this back in. Make sure it's in properly. Fantastic. So we're just going to give these little venturi holes there a clean. Lovely. We're going to give the top part a little bit of a blast. This is a little bit like a toilet valve. When you flush the toilet, this drops down, opens the valve, allows the fuel in. When this is full, it will raise this up and cut the fuel off, stop it overfilling. So, yeah, I'm happy about that in there. Let's put that jet back. Here we go. Don't rush these things, otherwise that's how they get damaged. And here, trying to find parts for a carburetor is like chicken's teeth. So make sure that's nice and snug. So basically now, I'm going to just refit everything. First of all, I'm going to fill up this bowl with some fuel that's got oil mixed into it, a little bit like two-stroke. That way it'll lubricate it, because obviously carb cleaner is a little bit harsh, and I think that's going to be the best thing to do. So I'm just going to fill that bowl up. Okay, there's my two-stroke mix that I use on the old chainsaw. I'll put a little bit of that in the bottom. That's enough. So that will lubricate it, the bores, protect the bores from the carb cleaner. And now I'm going to reassemble it. Okay, so just put the last couple of screws in. Okay, they're nice and tight, and remember, I put the screw in here to stop the fuel leaking everywhere. So pop that back on, and that is our last one, goes in there. Fantastic. So just put these back up. Lovely. So put the airbox back on. 210mm that hold the airbox housing in situ. Carburetors all back together. Appears to be no leaks, so we're going to just fire up now and see how she goes. It should be a little bit of splutter and a little bit difficult to start due to the fact, obviously, the fuel has been drained off. So to conclude, before we start the car, that ethanol fuel is not the best to be added to a classic car. Now, I remember years ago when I was young, you used to have lead added to the fuel. Now, of course, we know lead is very bad for the environment and it's very bad for your health if you start breathing it in. So rightfully so, they phase the lead out. Now, one of the advantages of adding lead, there wasn't many, but one of them was it actually lubricated the valves. So as the engine burnt the leaded fuel, the lead, being a very soft material, would coat the valves to stop the valves hitting the cylinder head. Of course, nowadays you don't have lead in fuel, thankfully, but unfortunately the valves on older cars do take a real bashing, literally, due to the fact of having no added lead in the fuel. You can now buy an additive which protects the valves. It's not quite lead, but it has some obviously stronger lubricating properties just to protect the valves. So conclusion being is that if your budget allows, or you don't use the car very frequently, always try to use super unleaded fuel, because at the end of the day, leaving the car stood for a long time, you are going to get moisture built up in those metal tanks, fuel tanks, which is going to lead to corrosion. And of course, as I've already said, that E10 or higher does have complications with the carburetor in terms of the materials made in the carburetor and varnish build-up. So if unfortunately you cannot afford it, obviously try to start the car more frequently, and again, you can add certain products to your fuel tank to help reduce the moisture build-up inside. Anyway, without further ado, let's see how this old girl starts, if it starts. So we're going to give just a little bit of choke and blip the throttle a couple of times just to prime the carburetor, the accelerator pump, and we shall give a whiz on the old key. Make sure, of course, the car's in neutral. let's shut this door, and I can guarantee you my dogs will bark, because they always do when I start the car. Let's give it a little go. There we go, fire straight into life. Turn the choke back a little bit, and there we go. Oh well, cut out. Try it again. Pump the throttle a little bit. There we go, and that fuel should be running through. Slowly try to put it back a bit. Fantastic. Fantastic. Okay, so we have it. A simple top of the end carburetor clean. And of course, I think it goes without saying that really at the same time, I would change the fuel filter. I've already changed the fuel filter literally about a week or so ago, which next time I'll do, I'll actually include a video on. A pretty simple thing. It's down here, with this car being obviously a left-hand drive car, steering wheel on the wrong side, of course. It's literally behind me, close to the back wheel. Pretty simple to do. And sooner enough, I'll show you in another video how to actually change the fuel filter. Until then, please click that like button and subscribe, and add any comments that you feel necessary. Thank you again. Do take care. As they say here in Morocco, Masalama.